And throughout this conversation, what I'd really like for you to focus on is Catherine's journey, where she's gone from exercise is something that feels like she has to do because she feels guilty if she doesn't do it, or for some other external means, to a point where exercise feels like it's something that she has pride in, it's something that she enjoys, and it's something that's connected to her values. I want you to focus also on her relationship with exercise and how it's become more flexible and less rigid over time. I hope you enjoyed this interview, and here's Kathrin. Chatting with Kathrin, who has been a Sequence member for how long?
October 9th, 2022. So
Yes.
9, 10 months.
And you were actually one of the first people that I spoke with when I came on board here at
Really?
Sequence. Yeah, you really were. It was a great
Oh,
experience. And I've spoken with you a lot. Your wife seems to ignore me for some reason. I've only spoken to her once. That's okay. No hard feelings. Um, but what
she's
I
more introverted. She's much more introverted.
No, but yeah, but I get enough of you, so that's fine. So what I really wanted to talk about with people was, and maybe a better way to put this is to understand their experience with exercise. And I know in speaking to you that you're the kind of person that's done a lot of different things, and it seems like you've found out what works well for you right now. So I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about your exercise history.
Yeah, it's been a little rough and tumble. It went from a lot of moving to make up for or punish or all those things that like just felt really harmful, but I didn't realize at the time. So I think early on, I played soccer. I grew up in Germany, played soccer, was a little bigger. Often wonder if my mom would have left me alone, would I have grown up more normative? But the food shaming and all that happened really early. And I think in my teens, it was the how do I move so I can be smaller? Like whatever I can do, and like a lot of cardio. I was on the swim team. I hated it. I was the largest person on the swim team. I was always last. And while I know how to swim now, like I think that was really traumatic for me, doing all of that. In my 20s, I went through the whole Beachbody, bodybuilding.com, and not until CrossFit did I really fall in love with lifting. I always say I'm a recovering CrossFit person. I used to do like 6, 7 days a week, punishing my body. And then I fell in love with lifting and I power lifted the last 10 years or so. Um, and then more recently, I think I've shifted to lifting, and everything else is in service to recovery. And we've talked about that, where I used to do a lot of hit stuff, a lot of high intensity. And it's really like, what can I do to recover so that I lift well and all of my movement is in service to, can I walk stairs when I'm 70? Like, how can I be as mobile as possible for as long? And that's a huge shift for me. So that's kind of
That's
the
great.
arc of it.
No, that makes sense. I think something that I'm interested in is, and you actually put it quite well. I'm curious as to people's relationship with exercise when they were younger, and it sounds like you went from a transition period. You actually used the word hate, and then you moved the word to love, and then you moved the word to like longevity, which to me, maybe fill me in a little bit more on this, but it almost sounds like you started exercising. I don't know if guilt's the right word, but to get this outcome that you wanted to be in control of your body. Maybe you felt like you weren't exercising because you wanted to exercise. Then you found something that you loved, and now
Yeah.
you're doing it because you value these other things, and you realize that exercise improves that. It makes your life better. Yeah, can you tell me a little bit more
Yeah.
about that?
It's definitely been like a full circle. I love playing soccer. Everything from just like casually on a weekend to when I was in primary and secondary school on teams. Like I love that. And then I think a shift happened, and it would probably coincided with my mom signing up for Weight Watchers and yanking me along, and then Jenny Craig and fill in the blank. And it transitioned to this thing where the goal was, if I move more, I will lose more faster, and then I will be loved and accepted because the way I am is disappointing.
Yeah.
Um, And I think I lived in that space for a really long time. Like I think my 20s and part of my early 30s, it like movement was for the sheer purpose of to accelerate weight loss, taking up less space, and like having the result, whatever that is. And most of it was like shrinking. And I think, for all of the complicatedness of CrossFit, I began to learn like movement is powerful. Movement makes you feel good, even though I still hate burpees. And I think the love of lifting has propelled that shift, because I think in like the powerlifting space, one, you're competing against yourself, and two, generally in that space, there's a shift to like taking up more space, whether it's literally or just like energetically. It's a very different shift that was very uncomfortable for a long time, but I think it fueled this healing around how do I move that feels good. And then I'm just getting older, right? So I just doing a lot of high intensity stuff and powerlifting, which is just taxing to the system. Like I can't do both. Like I'm no longer in my early 30s.
Yeah.
So I think it's that time thing too.
Have you ever been to you've been to a powerlifting meet?
Yeah, I've competed 2 or 3 times here in California with USAPL.
Yeah,
The last time I lifted was probably 2016, 2017.
Yeah. Oh, it's infectious energy.
I don't know.
It's incredible energy there, isn't it? So
yeah.
I just posted my first threads ever, and the first thing that
I saw that,
and the first thing that I said was like, if your main motive for exercise is weight loss, you need to find another motive. A lot of people exercise to lose weight. Can you if you could go back in time and give yourself advice, what would you say?
To not listen to all of the shoulds and should nots. Like everyone has an opinion about like the best way to move. And really what I found is the best way to move is to find something that like you really enjoy, because like enjoying it like holistically will keep me doing it. Even if I have a hard day where like, shit, this feels hard, or like this feels heavy, or it's not moving, I still enjoy it. Like I think me digging into like Barry's boot camp and like I didn't enjoy any of that, and I didn't stick with it. So I think there's a direct connection between how much do I like this way of moving and me doing it for longer term. And I think also holding space for that might shift. So sometimes like lifting is at the top of it. Right now, hiking is taking up some space because it's really fun and it's new, and I'm exploring and I'm getting out in the world and I'm doing things that I didn't think my body could do. So yeah, I think one is not listening to others of all like their shoulds, and that's nutrition and moving, and then also like give yourself space to explore other things, because you don't know, like there's so many ways of moving, and that might just shift over time.
Yeah, that's it. When I was 24 and if you asked me if I would go for a run, I'd be like, you wouldn't catch me dead running. And then I ended up challenging one of my professors. She said, if you do a half marathon, then I'll do a powerlifting meet. And so I would text her every Sunday after my long run, and I'd say, hey, just did 6 miles. And she's like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to do a powerlifting meet. And I ended up enjoying the process of running, and she enjoyed the process of competing for that powerlifting meet. And I enjoy running now actually for almost the social side of it compared to anything else. So I like what you said, that it be open to change. Does that sound like a good, like what you were saying?
Yeah, because like something like as my body's changing and as I'm able to do more things, it also opens up like the space of exploration of like, I'll never be able to hike up a hill, or I'll never be able to run a mile. That's changing as I'm taking care of myself more. And that, that first conversation I had with Dr. Mohammed at Sequence, where like obesity is a chronic illness and it's not your fault, but you have agency in care. like that was such a foundational shift, and that's also extended to movement because like as I've taken care of myself and had a support system to take care of myself, my clinician, my dietitian, you, like it's opened up this whole world of like I can move in ways I never thought I could. So let's explore.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about, because I know that you're loving the outdoor hikes. Tell me more, and I'm a huge proponent of going out and hiking outdoors. Tell me more about how you found that and what's that been like.
Yeah, we live in California. I live in the East Bay, and like outside my door, there's so many places to hike. And I've walked like the marina, but being able to like explore our reservoirs and different spaces. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis, and the doctor said, your active life is over. A little bit of all of this is to like show him a little bit. and and also like as I started hiking, I'm like, wow, this is really beautiful. If we get to these, I'm gonna call them summits. They're not. They're like 500 feet up. And I'm like, wow, this is beautiful. I want to do more of this. And then it went from like 2 miles to 3. I think I did 6 this weekend. Like, and now I have some goals around that. Like, I want to hike Red Rock in Las Vegas. I want to do Joshua Tree. I want to do one of the easier summits in Yosemite.
Yep.
And it's just, it's like getting out.
Mm-hmm.
It's really lovely. And then just being around water and nature has been a little healing because it's like thinking time. And then on the side, it's actually helped me not quite conquer, but like push on my fear of heights. Because like when you're walking and you look down, you're like, ooh, that's far. It's helped me kind of get uncomfortable and be like, it's not so bad. You can do this. And it's another way of like showing myself what I can do.
I like that a lot. By the way, you need to go to Red Rock Canyon. It's incredible. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful hike. What I'm kind of hearing is that you started exploring something. And by the way, there's a whole line of research as to how exercise isn't just walking outside. Is I think the most conclusive thing that I've seen for that is improvements in mental health. So that above and beyond just if I went on a walk on a treadmill, people just feel more relaxed, they feel better, they feel more restored. But it's for you, it sounds like it was, I started doing this thing, I really started enjoying it, and then it became, what am I capable of? Let me set a goal around this, something to look forward to with exercise, and then see what my body's capable of.
Yeah. And there's also the mental health component. Like, I mean, we've talked about this. Like, if I don't move for a couple of days, everyone around me suffers. I have better clarity. I'm a better wife. I'm a better friend. I'm much more focused at work. And also because of my OA, movement really helps. Like the, move less and eat less suggestion from my doctor was actually a really bad suggestion because the less I move, my knees hurt more.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know that's important for that.
Yeah. So I think like it's like all the things. Like walking is very mental health. Being out in nature is let's see what I can do. But also I think it's just healing. I love being around water and I love walking the reservoirs. And there's just something really gratifying when I've done a steep hill and then I look at like I did that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
That's, what I'm kind of hearing too is we went from exercise because we felt like we had to finding something that we liked, to feeling pride in what we accomplished with something that we love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That sounds like a great journey that I don't anticipate everyone is, goes through in a linear fashion. And I know that it probably took a lot of time for you. What advice would you have for somebody if you could fast track that? I'm curious. I don't know if you can, but what advice would you have for somebody to fast track that?
Just try something. Like I tried so many modes of moving and a lot of them were duds. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of them, like, this is so not for me. But I think that's part of it. Right? Like it's, so, fast track that through, there's all kinds of apps. Like we have, ClassPass. I did a lot of that like 7-8 years ago, just to try a bunch of things and like not have a big investment. But, I think it's just like start and try.
Yeah. And
try 3 times. Like I don't know if I would have come back after my first CrossFit if like that next day was hard. And I think like it was like try something 3 times. By the third time, either you know you're gonna like it or you don't.
Yeah.
And it tries many different things, and it's like finding joy in it. It's hard to fast track. It's been like a process over like years and years. But I can say like lifting was instant for me. Like that was an instant thing. The hiking thing, I wasn't so sure. Like there's, you know, spiders and snakes. And
Yeah.
I am an urban girl. I walked through a spider web the other day and I thought I was gonna like lose my mind.
Yeah.
So like some things are instant and some things take a little bit of time and like sitting with it and being like, am I uncomfortable because it's hard, or do I just really hate this thing?
Yeah. No, that's and by the way, I live with somebody that hates spiders, so I totally understand it. Another thing that I'm kind of hearing from you is maybe you can't fast track it, but understand that it's a process and to be okay with it's not going to happen immediately. Does that sound right?
Yeah, yeah, and some things will be hard where like I really have to talk myself into it. Like I did a few half marathons, lots of false starts and lots of tears and lots of why am I doing this? And also okay if your why shifts. Like I did 3 and then my why shifted, and like that's okay. But yeah, I think it's a process, and also leave yourself space for things to shift.
Mm-hmm.
The self empathy and grace is a big part of this.
That's exactly what I was just going to ask you, is where does self-compassion come into this process?
Yeah, it shows up with CrossFit. I had very little rest days, and now I listen to my body. Like if I need a rest day, an extra one, like I will take it, because it's a form of actual like healing for me. Where before it was so all or nothing. We've talked about that. Like it was all or nothing. Either I was doing the hour-long workout or like nothing at all. And sometimes compassion is just doing 15 minutes, like more than nothing. And it's also like fueling myself well and like focusing on sleep, and like all those things are really important too. It's not just the pushing and sweating and your muscles hurting or like whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's also all the other things around it that, and I don't always get it right. And it's also like, oh, that didn't go well. How do we fix that next time? Like, did I bite off more than I could chew? Was what I set out unsustainable? Because I think I'm still, that all or nothing is hard to kind of get rid of. And it's a process of like unpacking and undoing. So like it's a reevaluating when things don't go well. Like why didn't it go well? Like did I underplan? Did I over like promise myself? Was it ill designed? Do I just need more time? Like that's all the compassion too, I think, the self-compassion.
Yeah, this sounds to me like a transition to a very holistic focus on fitness, because I think if you dive really deep into one aspect of fitness, you might miss all these other things. You know, if I'm only powerlifting, then what suffers? You know, does that make sense? And it sounds like your view is more holistic now.
Yeah, and I think it came from, I have a new therapist that I started out, I guess, right after I started my GLP medication. And we're really focusing on like, what does harm reduction look like? Like the self-harm, what does it look like? Me not harming others. I think like some of my actions and beliefs, like when I put them in the world, like they're harmful to others.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I do less of that? And I think the way that I approach moving, it's not perfect and I get it wrong a lot at times where I'm like, oh, that did not feel great. That's an old thought. But I think like that's the motion I'm trying to make. I mean, one thing I've started doing is when I have this thought creep in of I ate in X way, I should do Y movement, I do nothing, even if that day was a workout day. Cause like, I just want to short circuit that thought process, because like that's self-harm.
Yeah.
When like I'm acting in ways to make up for or compensate for quote unquote bad ways of eating.
Yeah.
Like it's so connected. And it's really hard to be like, I guess today's the rest day. I'm going to sit down and be really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Because
I want to fix it. I want to make it better. I want to reverse my mistake And that's been a really hard process.
Yeah,
But I
that's
love my parents for pushing me.
you're breaking the link between exercise as punishment. You're just like, I'm just not even gonna let that be a thing that enters my mind. Um,
And if it does, it has consequences. Like I think like I moving in that moment is actually more harm. Like leading into that is actually more harm than taking an extra rest day and journaling, I mean meditating, or sending a note to my therapist with like an online portal where like sometimes send her notes. Like the moving in that moment is actually more harmful, or at least in my approach.
yes. Now, one, are you joining our walking group right after this?
No, I have a work thing.
You have okay, that's fair. So, but
Yeah.
I wanted to say, just so you know, anyone that's listening, Catherine's been, she's been a sequence member for a while, but she's been in a lot of groups too, and she's been incredibly supportive to other group members too. She joins our walking group. She helps me edit my spreadsheets when I make a mistake too. So I just wanted to let you also say anything that you know, if sequence members are listening and maybe they haven't started exercising yet, you know, what piece of advice would you give to them?
Yeah. So much has changed with sequence since I started, and when the big things are like all the groups that you have now. And I think if nothing else, join that one that's like how to maximize. Like there's just so many resources that I didn't know existed. So I think like it's doing the lessons. They're so helpful. Meeting with you, meeting with a dietitian. I think just the more touch points you have, and the bigger your kind of support network is, um, the less hard this is, and less lonely it is. Because I mean, sometimes as you change, the people around you aren't always down for it, but there's a community here that can maybe take up that space that um, becomes to build in your personal life. I've had a few of those where like I've let go of friendships and it's hard, and having a support network is really hard, and so really awesome. So use the groups, use the lessons, like meet with all your care team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's been the biggest thing. Like joining those groups has just been so great
Yeah.
for me.
That's perfect. That is my primary goal. If we're breaking down goals quarter by quarter, is to get more people in the group, get a bigger sense of community. Before I let you go, too, I'm curious. Did you use that text chain that we did in the accountability group? You were in that group, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we texted back and forth
You
a little
texted
bit.
back and
So
forth.
yeah.
Okay,
And I also love our chain with the walking
that's a
group,
great
like
chain.
seeing people
Yeah.
with their hikes and their dogs and
Yes.
hey Scout,
Shout out to Scott.
like all of that. Yeah, that's been great.
That's
It's because
awesome.
a little nugget, like when it's hard on a Wednesday and you're like, God, I have 2 more days in this week and it's hard, and then you see someone post about, wow, I hiked today and didn't think I could, or I went for a swim, or hey, just have a great day. Like
Yeah.
it's just a little bbit that you need to propel yourself forward versus getting stuck.
Yeah, I love it. That makes me happy to hear. So I'll wrap this up. Cue the theme music that we don't have.